Good evening. Tonight we have a special roundtable on the ongoing party primaries. We've taken a break from our usual dinner setting to have this important discussion on our country's democracy. Tonight, we've gathered the observers at the roundtable. What do they think about the ongoing primaries? Is it an indicator of our strengthening democracy, or do the current scenes leave a bitter taste in their mouths? Welcome to the roundtable. I'm Asha Mwilu. Tonight, I'm joined by Kwame Owino from the Institute of Economic Affairs, Mule Musau from ILOG, and of course, Dina Awor from the National Women's Steering Committee. Thank you for joining me. So you've been observing the scenes, I'm sure, the party primaries. What goes through your mind when you see the outcomes, when you see, the postponing of different counties? What goes through your mind? Dina, maybe we should start with you.
So far, a circus to an extent. But having said that, I also want to say that the parties have attempted to do something right. It just has not come out the way it should come out.
I mean, if you compare especially with 2013, looking at this year, have there been any improvements so far?
There's been improvement in terms of so many people have decided to run, meaning that is a good thing. But in terms of our political parties being able to organize better, I don't think they've learned so much.
So more participation, poor planning.
Poor planning, and the fact that we have more people participating doesn't mean that we have more leaders, quality leaders participating. Because otherwise we wouldn't be seeing some of the ugly scenes that we are seeing. If most of the people that were vying had leadership qualities, we wouldn't be having the kind of ghoulish, thuggery kind of behavior that we're
witnessing.
Yeah.
Let's even bring in the election observers group. What do you think from your perspective?
I think best, I agree with Dina in terms of a number of things, but first, the comparison between 2013 and now. We had very shambolic party nominations in 2013. I think for me, if you ask me, and based on what we have seen so far, what we have right now is a lot of attention to the party nomination process. Right. In 2013, nobody paid a lot of attention to this, and as a result, very many things went under, and we never reported. We only reported the ugly scenes in terms of the violence.
Do you mean attention from the media?
From the media and everybody,
from
all the stakeholders,
public.
even the election observers ourselves. Right. I mean, we are paying much more attention to these nominations than we did in 2013, and as a result, very many things now are starting to come to the fore. For instance, suddenly we are noticing these parties are not having party registers. They are working with IEBC registers. Suddenly we are noticing that there's a lot of disorganization, lack of proper training for the election officials. We are seeing a lot of malpractices, a number of electoral offenses which are being committed out there. So if you ask me, I think the difference between 2013 and now is that we just now are much more focused. We are looking at this. Whether we have moved an inch, I updated in my social media, and I said in a democracy book of 1,000 pages, I think we've just done 55 so far.
Kwame,
the number of years after independence.
Let's hear from Kwame, because I'm just seeing him nodding. I wonder what you're thinking, because you're like an observer from the outside, a policy think tank.
Yeah. Well, I think that if you ask me, one question is Kenya's democracy vibrant? And democracy is not entirely about elections. But yes, I think it is. Many people, in spite of what people think about leaders, many more people are stepping out there to try and fill that void. Parties beat more than they could chew, in my view. But it's not only parties that fail. I think the idea that we've never had efficient elections in this country. I mean, even the IEBC itself, which people think would have stepped into this fault, doesn't do a good job. I mean, at the last elections in 2013, some ballot papers arrived in the afternoon.
But I mean, one would argue,
in spite of the logistics and the amount of money that was, so parties are overwhelmed. The main lesson is perhaps that they're bringing it too close to the deadline. not able to resolve.
And that's what I was going to ask, because one would argue that from 2013 they had 5 years to plan.
Yes.
How then can we make this excuse for them that, you know what, party are overwhelmed, the IBC made the same
It's not an
mistakes?
excuse. Actually, it's a clear observation that, yes, even they have not, actually party management is shambolic. Last year, and partly the media is to blame, because last year one party bought a building, called all of you to a jamboree, hired 200 cars, and all of us went out there saying, look, they have it. And you almost called the election. And then you realize that they suddenly come back and say they weren't prepared for the number that they would receive. Come on. So obviously, I think sometimes in the media itself, you lead ourselves with too much PR. The real logistical work that is required to make sure that everybody has a vote out there and is able to do that is very sophisticated work. Now, and it's not impossible. I know, for instance, like this media house, I mean, you distribute newspapers throughout the country and you make sure that by 8 o'clock it's in every town in Kenya.
Day.
So obviously, even measuring against your benchmarks, parties are run by party loyalists who are not the same as competent people. And I think that's what's coming out.
So before we even get to that...
It's a very major issue that you just talked about there in terms of competence. The issue of the difference between just having people who are loyalists and people who are competent to be able to run party affairs. But
Kwame brought up a really interesting point. You said democracy is not just about the elections.
Well, it's not just about this.
It's not about just about elections.
Precisely.
But history will teach us why the party nominations, having different parties, and the democracy within parties is very important. I actually want you to watch this clip so that we can just ponder on it a little bit. It's hard to talk about democracy in Kenya without thinking about Sabasaba. The day Kenyans gathered in Kamkunji to demonstrate their anger against the one-party rule. It was the inception of an open defiance against President Moi's regime. An introduction to democratic reforms. The bloody riots that shaped Kenya's politics forever. That was the year 1990. Today, political parties enjoy the freedoms to exist, multiply, duplicate, you name it, without the lingering cloud of uncertainty that multi-party agitators were always so aware of. It's no lie that political party nominations have in the years been fraught with allegations of electoral fraud, violence, bribery, and confusion. In 2017, it's seemingly not different.
We want to assure our members and our aspirants that there was no distraction, the election material was not tampered with, and it was distributed to polling stations where the exercise is going on smoothly.
It is not that we were unprepared. We were underprepared.
The process has been so disorganized that the referee has had to step in.
The Commission is committed to imposing sanctions on any political party or aspirant that breaches the code of conduct.
So the big question is, 27 years after the fight for a multi-party system, are today's political parties living up to the dreams of the forefathers of democracy? That's a big question. When we think of Matiba, when we think of Rubia, when we think of Timothy Njoya, and then we look at what's happening.
Yeah, you know, Asha, we shouldn't truncate history. Our history of democracy does not start with 1990. And shambolic party elections were actually there even during the one-party state.
That's true.
So if we remember it tells you two things. One of them is that basically developing the logistical capacity to actually run an election smoothly is one thing, because the public demands it, but parties don't seem to invest in providing it. For the reason that party administration is not in professional hands. But it's in the hands of loyalists.
I think the reason why we're bringing up 1990,
the second bit is, it looks like disorder favors some political end. And for that reason, people have an interest in continuing to make it happen. So it's
well orchestrated. Listen, the reason
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but yes, there are people who benefit
the reason I'm bringing up 1990 is because some of the players in the current political scene fought for that same multi-party democracy. Raila Odinga was part of that team. His party, ODM, we've seen the same chaotic scenes previously and even now. You would think, why were we fighting for for the democracy? Why were we fighting for multi-party democracy, Dina?
You know, I want to agree with Kwame that political parties, most political parties, even the well-funded or the well-oiled, do not invest in internal democracy, in building capacity of those that work for them.
Yeah.
They want to work with loyalists who might not be professional in what they do. But having said that, I want to say that there are people who thrive. If you've been in a political party, you will understand that most of what political parties talk about is more theoretical than realistic, or than something that they would want to do. Because for the longest time, I believe that there are people that are beneficiaries of party chaos, right, and they thrive when there's confusion. A good example is the Jubilee primaries, the past one. Why is it that things now seem to be working and things last week were not working? What is it that they are doing now that they did not do? And for the president to come out, out and say that they were underprepared is laughable, given the amount of monies that they collected from the aspirants, yeah, given the sheer power in terms of logistics that they have as a sitting government. Yeah, so I think
the emerging theme is that it's well orchestrated.
There are
this is
things
a plan
that are done deliberately.
I'm not too sure it's a plan.
Yeah.
Some of these people also have too much faith in their own competence when they're not. I mean, when you look at party operatives speak, all manner of things, they started by laughing. And there was an example. They started by laughing at one party that held theirs first, and it was going wrong. So you'd have thought they absorbed some lessons. But then the hubris that you see, people just think they're with it, and they're not. And that's not difficult, because you also see them implementing things when they're in government, thinking they're doing well, and they're not. So there's some stubbornness that we see, and people who have too much belief in their capability when they don't have that. So that's it.
I think I wanted to jump in and just go back to the question that you asked in terms of from the 90s and what is happening right now. I think my take is that you have to look at this thing also with context in mind. We started by fighting for democratic space first. We had the laws. We had, the issue about the Constitution. I think that is a fight which has gone on to some extent. We can be able to say it's fairly gone well. As far as fighting for the laws, fighting for the democratic space in the country, for the reason why we are having people joining different political parties at whim, is because of the kind of space, even speaking about this on opposing sides. Yeah. I think there's a space that we have already been able to procure from the process of the second liberation, if you was to call it. Where we are, if you ask me, again from an observation point of view, is that we are at a stage where we are supposed to be thinking about institutions, building institutions. Yeah. And you remember that we have had a number of this going on, the judiciary. We had a lot of the vetting process about the judiciary. Yes. There's a time that we started focusing our attention to the police. We have had the IEBC being on focus. This stage is a stage where we are now starting to look at the political parties internally. Right. Can they be able to deliver? As one of the most strategic institutions in terms of the democracy development, can they be able to put their act together and be part of those progressive forces or institutions which usher in, which create the opportunity for Kenyans to be able to participate in democracy?
That's a fair enough point. But if we're seeing the scenes right now, how do we term this election democratic if at the nomination stage we already have such glaring contentious issues?
I think actually let's give credit to its due. Not every single one of those nominations ended in disaster. So part of it is, yes, I don't have the numbers for 2013 and today to actually compare, but yes, some of them were predictable because some races were very tight. There were two people or a number of people, and some of those races are tight, and you can see that. What I blame parties for is that they claimed they had planned to run these places, and by noon, some of those stations were not open and the ballot papers had not arrived, while other people had already photocopied papers and were stuffing ballots. Yeah. That's where I think they've really failed and failed really badly. And they were not, in some cases, they were not even able to distinguish their own ballot from the one that was supposedly fake. That's the problem. But that you can have problems on its own is not an issue. The issue is, are there institutions to deal with it? Let's go back to the elections in 2008 in the US. The Democratic Party drove each other until the last 2 months before the elections, before they actually decided. No, sorry, the last 3 months before they actually decided. Part of the reason being that there was a lock.
Right.
I mean, the rules were such that, but people knew when we get to the convention, we are going to resolve it one way or the other. So that there is conflict in itself is not necessarily a failure of democracy.
Yeah.
What we are asking ourselves is, these tribunals that are sitting within the party,
Are they working?
what evidence have they even collected to be able to actually distinguish between the number of people who are registered and the number of people who actually voted?
So it's about how the disputes will be resolved moving forward.
If the disputes come out, of course, as we can see, many disputes have come out. What kind of evidence will they have to be able to resolve that issue? And how are those rules? Because some people actually are leaving because they don't trust the boards, for instance. So that's the institutional part that we have to. But that they're able to run, or that they're trying to have wide reach, is not something we can blame parties for. That they've made Kenyans excited enough that people are lining up from 6 o'clock.
That's
that is a democratic game.
Actually,
Let me bring in Dina. What do you think about that? I mean, the same question. It's nomination. We're seeing these scenes coming to the election time. How do we then expect that we have a free and fair election, while even at the party stage, it didn't look very free or fair?
Well, to that, I'd just say that we've won some, we are learning some. And being a young democracy, it's not that bad, though we want to do better. I'd also like to say that it seems like as though this democracy thing for us is not real, because even among the leadership, you find that during elections, it's like it's open season for anything to happen. There is a code of conduct, there are laws, there are institutions that are watching over this whole process, but you find that those that are involved are not cognizant of the fact that if they do something wrong, they are culpable. Just the other day you saw somebody, an aspirant, giving out money,
Right.
And obviously it was bribing. But for some reason, because we are so busy, everybody is running after the coveted certificates, nobody is stopping and saying, wait, that was an electoral offense.
Well, it's still an allegation. We don't know
Yeah.
what was.
Well,
why
allegedly.
the aspirant was
Allegedly.
handing out the money.
Yeah.
You never know. They might have.
No.
Yeah, of course.
She might have been selling t-shirts,
Come on.
guys, you know?
Let's. I mean, if you're referring to this picture that was distributed quite widely,
Yeah.
if a candidate, and it doesn't matter whether they're male or female,
Yes.
candidate wearing party colors is distributing money to everybody and talking, you know who will come on. It cannot be anything else.
Yeah.
And by that, we don't even have to wait for the party to actually react.
Yeah.
Even the police could do that.
And even the party members.
And the reason, Nasha, why
Yeah.
I'm talking about institution is that, you see, the police is an institution.
Yes.
We have the office of the DPP,
Precisely.
which is in charge of ensuring that all issues to do with the electoral offences are taken, they attend to them. And we can see all these things going around. Nobody is being summoned. At the most minimum, you'll hear, that we have summoned this so you can be able to explain what we are seeing out there. This is not happening, and yet some of these things are very blatant, they are very open.
And Mule, that's the question. So if no one is going to be penalized for what they're doing, then is it then that our democracy is just an illusion?
No, I mean, I actually think that as the media, you can help by pitching the story correctly. We are seeing failure of parties. We are not seeing failure of state institutions that have existed for 60 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that,
I mean,
that is the attention that you need to have. What Kwame is saying in simple terms is, yes, the political parties are having their problems, but who is casting an eye on the DPP? Yeah. Who is casting an eye on the IEBC? IEBC, until they spoke, was it on Saturday?
Yes, on Saturday.
To rein in on the chaos, they have been quiet for nearly a week, and there was chaos all over the country. Have we heard from the Registrar of Political Parties?
NCIC.
NCIC in terms of hate speech and intimidation out there. So there are so many institutions out there which should take their due.
We cannot treat, I think one of the things that we must do is, for an institution and a democracy to survive, you cannot treat the elections period as a special period. So that if you are bribing people, or if you are hate speech only during elections, will you be taken in?
Yeah.
We can't treat this as a special...
It needs to be consistent and constant.
If somebody is a public somebody who is seeking public office is bribing voters or potential voters, it doesn't matter whether it's 2 months to the election or whether it's 3 years.
So
for
why
the
do you
next
think
election.
the institutions are so quiet right now?
Because we've given them the convenient view that it's parties that are failing. When these things happen, all these people are asking, where is party leader for party green? Where is party leader for party red?
Yeah. To come to their defense, I hosted the chairperson of the tribunals committee, and what he said is
they're waiting for a complaint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, first, to strengthen even the democracy within parties, we have to stand back and watch them, allow them to carry out their process.
Unfortunately, the law does not allow him to apply that discretion. That is complete.
And Asha, the other thing is that we do not watch people to getting killed or getting maimed out there or getting beaten up out there. There is law authority. There are authorities which should be able to crack down on that particular issue. Everybody knows. You know, one of the things I keep wondering about when you're discussing the issues about Kenya is that we know our context, don't we? We know how last minute we are. You know, there are nuances that we should be able to identify with being Kenyan. Every time there's an election, there are tensions across this country. There are going to be contestations which are going so stiff that we need to know, as if I was in charge of security in the country, I need to know where I need to position my people and what they need to do and to take
we have
action.
seen police officers on the ground, to be fair. I think the chaos would have been much worse if they hadn't been there. So at what point do you think these institutions need to come in? Immediately we see chaos on the ground.
The police, the police cannot act as if the elections period is special. That's what I want us all to know.
And it's not a
The media does
event.
that. The media does that you wait all along for everything to happen. Then when we are 1 year before the elections, you start saying hate speech is bad because the next elections will be as if it is
I think
it
you
is
should
right
be fair to us as well.
No, I mean,
because
this is not fairness.
we have been reporting on these issues. Perhaps
You drop
maybe
the hat
the
here.
focus.
No, you drop this here. And even some stuff such as this. There are people who are running right now and they have serious questions on their integrity, whether it's regarding NYS or Anglo-leasing or whatever. There are serious questions on their integrity. How comes you've not gone to their party leaders and asked, X shouldn't run? These questions are there.
That's a whole issue about the law, which
Instead,
will come
you're
to.
covering what numbers they're making. Come on, I don't think the question of strengthening democracy in Kenya does not lie with one institution called political parties.
Does it
or
lie
the
with
registrar,
media
or the
alone?
IBC.
No. But the media can do quite a lot to highlight to certain people who are failing in their jobs to say, look, guys, we need a decision here. Yeah.
All right.
And you track that decision.
Where should they have come in this period? NCIC.
NCIC should have been there even before. Yeah, they should have had the officials machinani long.
Well, they've mapped out hotspots. That much we know.
That much they do. They always map out hotspots, but really nothing really happens. Yeah, because we've seen terrible things happen, and they're quiet. And it's because, to some extent, the leadership of these institutions have an interest. Yeah, they're interested parties. So sometimes they feign amnesia, that they are not seeing, they are not hearing. Yet, when it is a simple mwananchi who has done something, they run to court, or they want to punish. Yeah. So I think we need to be realistic as the media and the different institutions, even the party members. When that aspirant was giving out money, if you are a law-abiding Kenyan that knows the rules and you're a member of a political party, you should have done something. We cannot always pretend that because we are just members, we don't have a role to play. We have a major role to play.
What do members do?
And that is why right now, political parties are having this process, and you're seeing in some areas they are trying to force people down people's throats, and we all can see that this person is being forced down people's throats, and people are quiet. But in some instances, you find that people are saying, no, we will not agree, and that is public participation, which is key in a democracy. So I think that we all, as a country, the different institutions, even the members, NCIC, the office of the DPP, this is the time, and I want to agree with Kwame that it shouldn't be a season where we do this. It should be something that is a way of life in this country.
And let me just quickly pick up from where she left.
Yes,
I have talked about institutions, and I still insist at the end of the day that we're still talking about institutions. Let me give you an example of an institution which has been doing some very good work, in my view, the judiciary. They sat a long time ago, formed a small committee, which was then a working committee on elections, and which has now become a substantive committee. Maraga was chairing it just before he became the Chief Justice. Now he's the Chief Justice, understands issues about elections, and they have been a little bit much of a prepared institution than most of the other institutions.
So judiciary, you'd give them
my issue is that...
I want you to hold that thought, Mule. Let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, we return to you with judiciary and the role they've played during